So you knew Juanita before she became Naima?
No, I didn't get a chance to meet her. But I found out that her daughter, Tony, was my uncle's daughter. His name was Leon Andrews, but Train adopted her. You know, that's Train's first wife. You know, but I know Tony very well. We used to go see Cousin Mary together in the nursing home. She hasn't been down in a while though.
So who were your mentors?
Well, like I said, the first one was Ernie Duncan. Anybody that just played good, I just, that's how I learned, by asking questions, and they would show me things, so I call them. And the main one was Fred Lacey from out of South Philly. He played guitar, but Lester Young back in the late 40s, early 50s, I think he even played at Emerson's with him too. But Lacey is the one that really learned me all my chord changes. And the first tune he wrote that was a hit was entitled Theme for Ernie. He wrote it for Ernie Henry, who was one of my idols too. He was the alto saxophonist with Dizzy Gillespie, but he died at a young age. But Coltrane recorded Theme for Ernie on an album called Soul Train. But he wrote a million tunes, a zillion tunes, Wrote one for Billie Holiday called Gardenia for a Lady. Well, he passed away, but a lot of those tunes are still around. So it was some of my influences, Jimmy Heath, of course, later on, I tried to be influenced by everybody. It makes you better,
So you mentioned jam sessions, like you all would jam or go practice. Can you talk about some of those experiences in and around Philadelphia?
Oh, besides the Grubbs Brothers' house on Thompson Street, we Church of the Advocate. Father Washington let us come over there every Tuesday night. That's where I met Sid Simmons and John Ellis and some 1,000 musicians I met over there from Philadelphia on those Tuesday night jam sessions. Then we had a place called the Freedom Library, but I always thanked Father Washington for he opened up the church for us to come off the streets and jam every Tuesday night. We didn't have to be in the street, And that's where I met most of the guys at. We'd meet down there every Tuesday night.
Did you know Father Washington?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I used to talk to him. Yeah, he was a great man. Great man. So that was in the 60s, 65, 66, 67, And guys started moving out to New York, different places and all that. And the Grubb Brothers Visitors broke up. And then me and Sid Sims started playing together a lot. And I guess we played together for 20 years or more. Well, 10 years just at Ortlips, And what a time that was.
So let's go back a little, Bootsie. Why did you end up choosing saxophone? You said you started out with piano and then you went to drums. How did you end up ultimately?
Like I said, drummers a dime a dozen, When you go to jam session, you might not never get a chance to play. You had to learn how to do something else, So I had time to. My grandmother I picked out a saxophone, but it wasn't the one I wanted. But the one I got was all right, and that's the one I learned on. Got it from the Wurlitzers down there on 12th and Market, music store down there. Because I used to see the horns in the window all the time. But I used to take drum lessons at Gimbel Brothers in the drum department every Saturday morning on the 9th floor. And I never did get one of those pretty sets that used to be up there. My father sent me a set from the military. It was an old raggedy beat up set, but they were mine. So before I could get a new set, I just wound up with the horn. I tried the trumpet, I tried everything. Didn't work, but I learned enough about them, the trombone. And once you learn the valve trombone, you can play tuba. You have to just learn the finger into the lower register. I played tuba, marching band, and all that.
You were in the marching band?
Yeah.
At Ben Franklin?
At Ben Franklin.
Can you talk about that? Like what was the marching band like for you?
I didn't like marching. But I just like to play the things, but with all the tuba stuff like Stars and Stripes Forever and all that, So I never thought I'd find what I wanted to play. I just went through so many instruments, But jack of all trades and master of none. But I have enough knowledge to teach kids to get them started on any brass instrument or reed instrument. I could get them started, then they're on their own.
So once you decided that saxophone would be, who were you listening to the most? Or who did you want to emulate early on?
Jackie McLean.
Why?
Well, I heard Jackie before I heard Charlie Parker. And I didn't know he was a disciple of Charlie Parker. And it didn't take long for me to say that, to find out that Jackie was a disciple of Charlie Parker. So quite naturally, I went right over to Charlie Parker. But Jackie's always been my influence, I think about him all the time. And I met him, I played with him once or twice with Philly Joe and church down there at 20th and Christian. And a couple shows with him down in Delaware, the Cohoney Jazz Festival. But he was still, every time I pick up an alto, I think about Jackie.
So you started out on the alto?
Yeah.
Because of him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the first tune you heard by him that you knew, that you had to play alto?
With Jackie? It's called A Long Drink of the Blues. It's on the album. Yeah. It's just a long blues. And all the great musicians on it. Gilly Coggins and I think Paul Chambers is on bass. I can't remember. It's too much. Yeah. But that's one of the first tunes I heard, and I knew he played some licks that I could play. Some of the stuff that Bird was playing, I couldn't play none of that. So I learned, and I found out he was influenced by Bird.
So as an alto player, what was your first gig, professional gig as an alto player?
At the Dawn Bar, right across from the old Blue Note, 15th and Ridge. My uncle worked there as a bartender, and Charlie Pinkney was the owner. And but he had a band. He had Jimmy Oliver's band, The Bad Man. And my future brother-in-law, Lonnie Shaw, was playing baritone. And Al Thomas was on piano. And Spanky the Breast was on bass. And on drums was Charlie Blackwell, who was the brother of Lucian Blackwell, the Blackwell family. I knew all of those brothers, you know. Charlie was a drummer, plus he wound up managing bands like Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt after that, in the 60s. But they were all playing at 15th and Ridge. And on break, we go over to the Blue Note. James Moody might be over there. We peep in the door. He said, all right, get out, because y'all not going to pay no money. And next door to the Blue Note was the NiteCap. Johnny Griffin might be playing in there. Or Benny Green, trombone playing Benny Green. Anybody, you know, so.
So this was all on Ridge Avenue?
3 bars right on one corner, yeah.
Right on
each.
Ridge?
15th and Ridge. And 15th and Brown was right over here, where the NiteCap was, and the Blue Note. It's an empty lot there now. Then they had another bar called Sid's, because when Bird and them would be in the Blue Note, they would go over to Sid's, get the cheap drinks. They didn't have no stools in the bar. You just stand at the bar and order a drink. You know what I mean? That's where the cheap drinks was. 15th and Ridge. Yeah, and I put my first group together. Charlie Pinkney gave me a start. And I had Spanky, and I couldn't find a piano player then. All of them are busy. So I used a guitar player named Tommy House and Spanky, and Lex had just came back home, Lex Humphreys. Had him on drums. And everybody used to come down to jam, you know. So it was Upper Lounge, the Dawn Bar.
How many nights did you play?
Friday and Saturday. Because Lord Fat Man, I think he had the Thursday. He used to be down there with Jimmy Oliver and them after they did their tenure there. They left to another spot, then he had it open. But he didn't give me all the weekends, but he'd give me maybe 1 weekend a month. Then he used other groups the rest of the time. So that was my first steady gig, you know. Then we started doing the cabarets with playing with small groups like King James. He sang just like Ray Charles, you know. We played all Ray Charles stuff. Chico Booth and the Furies, you know.
When did you meet Jimmy Oliver?
At the Dawn Bar. Okay. We used to go down there to sit in. And they would make all the young guys wait to the last set. And all my friends be done left, you know. So
how was it set up in the Dawn Bar? Could you describe how the setup in there?
Downstairs, long bar, and upstairs lounge.
And that's where you played, in the lounge?
Yeah, in the upper lounge.
Okay, you mentioned the Dawn Bar. What were some of the tunes that you played there?
Oh, they used to like to play Sweet Georgia Brown a lot. And I would play a tune written on Sweet Georgia Brown by Miles called Dig. It was a different melody, but it was on the same, it was a different figure, but it was on the same, you know, melody as Sweet Georgia Brown.
You mentioned it was dark in there. Can you describe what it was like, the atmosphere in Dawn?
It was like you know, when you get to the top of the steps, they had a little small bar where my uncle used to work right there. It's only about 6 feet. And you look straight back, the room was little small lights in the ceiling, but it was dark, and the stage was lit up, and you could see everybody on the stage. At that time, we all wore black suits and white ties, or either black suit and a black tie and a white shirt. Every gig, you wear a suit. That was your uniform. Now they wear anything on the bandstand, unless it's the Academy of Music or the Kimmel Center. And when you get a job like that, you have to tell the musicians now, wear a suit, because they'll still come undressed because they're born into this new era where you just get on the bandstand with anything on, you know. Philly Joe used to say, always look nice on the bandstand because you never know who's looking at you, you know. But common sense, if you play at the Kimmel Center, you're supposed to wear a shirt and a tie, you know. But a lot of musicians today, they don't just wear anything, you know.
So you mentioned
Yeah.
the fact that there was all of these different bars in such a
Well,
close...
at 15th and Ridge, yeah, at North Philly, that was the Dawn Bar. Right across the street from the Dawn Bar was 15th and Brown. That was the, I said it was the NiteCap. And the Blue Note was right next door to the NiteCap. So you can walk out the Dawn Bar across the street. James Moody might be playing. Then you walk out of the Blue Note, off the steps rather, because, you know, you had to pay $3 to get in. Nobody had $3. And you walk in the NiteCap, and it might be Johnny Griffin, anybody, Blue Mitchell, anybody might be playing in there. That's well known from New York, you know. So you could catch 3 for 1, you know.
So,
Sometimes the doors would be open, and the doorman would be there, but you could see the band, but you couldn't go in there unless you paid $3. Then they give you 3 tickets, so you can get 3 drinks. But $3 was a lot of money, you know. So.
you mentioned that Charlie Parker played. Where was
He would be like he played the Blue Note. And then, of course, all the musicians in the NiteCap and the Dawn Bar would try to sneak over to see Bird, you know, when he was playing there, you know. But I never caught him, but they was telling me that he played the Blue Note because it burnt down in '57. And I think James Moody was playing there. All the instruments got burned up in there. And instruments that they left in there. I meant to ask Moody, did his horn get burned up? I heard maybe one of them did, but, you know. And after it burnt down, it never really opened again, the Blue Note.
Who owned it?
I think a guy named Jack Fields owned it at that time. And the Dawn Bar continued with this. Jack was a trumpet player. He was an amateur trumpet player. And they said at the end of every night, he would go in his office and pull out his horn and ask Bird, can I play one? Bird would let him play one, but he's the club owner, so we let him play. He couldn't play.
So you played at the Dawn Bar, you said every Friday and Saturday. That was one of your first long-term gigs?
Yeah, yeah.
Where did you go next?
Well, I wound up coming back to the NiteCap, but after the Dawn Bar, it was just different. We were doing a lot of cabarets and stuff. I was playing with different bands, you know, and went to my old neighborhood. It used to be called Pitt's Bar at 13th and Poplar. I think Bird and them used to play in there too. And all the musicians from South Philly, like John, Bonnie, and Al Steele, and Buddy Savitt, and even Jimmy Alvin, all of them used to go down. They all used to play down there at the Pitt's Bar. And that was at 13th and Poplar. But years later, I lived at 10th and Poplar. But I never got a chance to play in there because I was too young. But later on, when I did get a chance to play in there, it was the same building, it was called the C&J. And I had a long residency there from 70 to 73. No, 70 to 72, somewhere in there. I don't know. Maybe it might have been after 72, because I went to the Virgin Islands from 71 to 72. So I worked there in 70. Then I came back around '71, summertime. And then I started working there again. I know I was working there when Lee Morgan got killed, because they came in and told me I had my organ trio there.
Who was in the organ trio?
I had Richard Waters on organ and Billy Bird on drums. And we stayed there I stayed there as long as I wanted to. But we left there and we wound up at the Sahara, 15th and South. And after Billy Paul had left, he had a long residency there too. And when Jimmy Heath came back on the scene, he had a residency there. And because he couldn't go back to New York until, they cleared it for him, So he got himself together in Philadelphia and went on back to New York. Then the rest is history. But I used to go down to see Jimmy Heath. And then Dottie Smith took it over. She used to sing with Louis Jordan. She was like my play mom. She took over the Sahara on 15th Street between Lombard and South. And I had a little residency there. And I left there to go to St. Croix. My cousin Jimmy had retired from Duke Ellington's band in 1969, and he bought a house in the Virgin Islands, and they gave him a job in the high school teaching music. He said, well, I didn't go to no college or nothing. She said, well, 26 years with Duke Ellington, let's teach the kids. So he taught them. But I can't do that because I don't have no degree. So everybody's, So he went down there and retired and taught high school for 20 years. Then he retired from that. He passed away at 94. He was young. Well, he was 77 when he passed. But he did chance to teach those kids in the Virgin Islands. And that's the way it should be. If you're qualified to teach them.
So you went down there. How long did you stay, and what were you doing down there?
He had my organ trio down there. We left the Sahara and went down there. He came, when he came, he'd come up every year to see my cousin, see his sister on 52nd Street, and his mother, which is my grandmother's sister, on 52nd and Girard. He would always stay a week or two. And I was working at Gus Silk Lacey's on 52nd Street. I had a long residency there for about 2 or 3 months. And I had, who did I have on organ? Larry LeBest, Philly Joe Jones on drums. I got advertisements, So I had a band called The Third World. But Philly Joe would do gigs with me out there and all that. So he came down there to see the group, to see me. He said, I'm going to bring y'all down the island. You want to come? I said, yeah. So, okay, give me a chance to work on it. That was around 69 or 70. And he called me in around 70, September. So I got y'all tickets. Y'all ready to come? I said, yeah. So we went on down to St. Croix, And we stayed down there to March of 72. It was a different world down there.
In what respect?
We had the organ ship down there and everything. Well, they'd never seen an organ before and everything down there. They loved the music, and we mixed it in with the music from the island. And the ones in St. Croix, they're called Crucians. The ones in St. Thomas, they call themselves St. Thomians, like that. It's 3 Virgin Islands, So we would fly over this little plane over to St. Thomas, only 15-minute flight, and do gigs over there, because they had a little beat-up organ over there, and stuff like that. He had the island kind of sewed up, but the gigs started drying up, Businesses was changing. They had a hurricane, and so we came on back. But it was a great experience. And my organ player passed away. He was young, and the drummer, when we got back, he wound up with Roland Kirk. But John Goldsmith, I talk to him all the time. He comes to Philly to visit. He lives in California. He doesn't play anymore. And we still talking about the time we had in the islands, Yeah.
So, Bootsie, you said you came up with the name Third World. That's what you were called?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how I came up with that.
Okay. So when you were at the Dawn, what was the name you used?
It was just the Bootsie Barnes Quartet, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you come back from the islands, what happens next?
Well, I had to get my truck back. My wife had sold my truck to a guy named Mr. Shorty. And I told him, I need my truck back, man. My wife sold you my truck. I was down the islands. Back then, you get a truck for a couple $100 or something. So I gave him a down payment. He said, all right, take your truck back. I'll get the rest of the money later on. Because I had to have a truck to move my organ, you know. He shipped the organ back, you know. So took me a minute to get on my feet, but then that's when I think I started working up the 72, 71 and 72, up at 13th and Poplar, C&J. Where I said that's where we found out that Lee Morgan had passed away, but everybody used to come to see us down there.
Did you know Lee Morgan?
Yeah.
Personally? What type of person was he?
Well, I didn't hang with him a lot, you know. He was doing so many gigs. You know, he had moved to New York by then, you know, up in Nicetown, like Rashid Ali said, he hated him, but he loved him at the same time. He just played so good, you know, at such a young age, you know what I mean? But he had his ways, you know. Then when they came, I went down to the Academy of Music to see Duke Ellington, and I was standing backstage, and he had an uncanny way, you know. If you didn't know him, he wasn't real friendly, unless he really knew you, you know what I mean. But he would say something and cut you off right short because he knew he was good. He didn't care. But like, long story. But he was just so great, you know. But me and his brothers, you know, well, you know, Jimmy Morgan, you know, he was great. I went to his funeral too. I said, who's your favorite trumpet player? He said, besides my brother, Freddie Hubbard. He said, you know my brother's my favorite trumpet player. Yeah. But I got a picture of Lee and Lex, you know, standing in the middle of Broad Street on the island, you know. But he was good. He went to Mass Bomb. Lex went to Mass Bomb too. Mm.
So when you heard about Lee Morgan's death, how did it affect you?
Oh, we couldn't even hardly play the last set, but we had to do it, you know. We didn't believe it. It was sad, you know, all over, you know. Didn't have to be that. They said if it wasn't for that storm, he could have still been around because he bled out. They could have saved him in the hospital, you know. That's what the doctor said. But he laid in that club on the floor all the time because it was a snowstorm and the ambulance couldn't nothing get through. So that's what happened.
So where was your next gig after?
After that, I don't know what year. I think in terms of the years.
What the J?
After the Dawn Ball, huh?
What the JNC? I think you mentioned, right? Was that the club you mentioned?
I can't hear you.
Was it the club on Poplar?
I think I left there. I went to the Sahara after. No. That's when I came back.
When you came back from
Virgin Islands?
Yeah.
Oh, went 13 to Poplar.
Yeah.
And I can't remember.
Okay. So when was your next long-term gig?
I guess at Ortlips, I think. That lasted like 10 years, starting when Pete bought it.